Hello, everybody, and welcome to our next round of session spotlights for Convergence 2026. This is an opportunity for you to get to learn more about our upcoming leaders, their sessions, and give you a better idea of what you would like to sign up for Convergence 2026 in New Orleans. Today, we will be hearing from Jennifer Williams, Sandy Cahill, Melissa Weaver Dunning, and Ellen Hess. Registration is open. We have just a few more days for advanced priority registration, and then priority registration will begin on Monday, October 27th, and general registration opens on November 10th. So if you're interested in getting a head start on registering, please head online or give us a call and we would be happy to help. As a reminder, Convergence 2026 will be taking place in New Orleans, Louisiana from August 12th through the 16th. You can find a digital copy of the registration booklet online. There you'll see all kinds of information about the different sessions and events taking place, including the marketplace, exhibitions, the fashion show, keynote speaker, tours, and more. We will be hosting over 100 sessions ranging from 90-minute seminars to 3-day workshops. As we learn more about some of these workshops today, please put any questions that you have in the Q&A section, and I will be sure to keep my eye on that as we make our way through today. This is your time to get answers directly from the instructors. First up, we welcome Jennifer Williams, who's going to be talking about Inkle Your Way, how to design custom inkle bands.
Hey, hello. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be teaching at Convergence this year. It's my first time teaching at Convergence and my actual first time actually attending. The first when I first started weaving, Convergence was in Tampa, and I only went to the marketplace, so this will be fun. Let me share my screen here. My thing is not from down here. There we go. All right, we are good to go. So this session, what I'm going to be talking about is my 3-hour seminar or session, Inkle Your Way, how to design custom inkle bands. It's going to be on the Saturday, the 15th from 1:30 to 4:30, and I invite you all to sign up, and I hope by the end of this that you will definitely want to. The idea behind the time together is to talk about inkle design for all. So if you are a new weaver, an experienced weaver, this is the workshop for you because we're going to look at going beyond patterns that are in books and how do you create patterns based on your favorite color or something that you are interested in copying. It will be a hands-on and discussion lectures style seminar. And we're going to start by talking about inspiration. So you want to create a band, but where do you find inspiration? We can find inspiration wherever, I mean, all over. And so we'll explore inspiration from nature, from textile, from architecture, from art. So as we look at where our inspiration comes from, we will then also look at, I'm inspired by this thing, but it has these colors that aren't necessarily me, or someone asked for a gift and it's in colors that I don't like. I personally am not, I call myself color hesitant because I love color, but I find myself staying in my color zone. So the way that we will talk about color in this time together is if you are color hesitant, how do you find palettes that you can work with? So we will talk about a bit about tones and hues and tints and all of that, but if I just can't, that's too much for me. How do you find colors that work for you? So we'll talk about some digital tools for finding color palettes for yourself. Once we found the inspiration, we've found the color palette, now we're ready to really start getting into playing with the yarn, which is the best part. So we're going to start exploring yarns and maybe we'll have some pictures. I will provide um, pictures from magazines or in some textiles that we'll be able to use as our jumping off inspiration points. We will talk about the elements of a band. So we have our idea, we have our colors, and we have our yarns, but now how do we build a band? What are the elements of that band? There's lines, we have stripes, we have dots and dashes. How do you put all of that into a band? How do you pull it all together? What about material? You can have so much fun with material. We'll explore weaving with metallic yarns, with fuzzy yarns, with silk yarn, with nylon yarn. So we'll talk about the elements of a band. Once we've done all of that, it is now time to have fun and play. So in your materials kit, you will receive yarns to play with. We will be coloring on Inkle design paper that I will provide that has the layout of what a draft would look like. We will have a sample warp design tool, so we'll be able to wrap an actual mimic a warp, and we'll look at digital design tools in addition to the lovely coloring and playing. So in Inkle Your Way, we will look at finding inspiration and translating that inspiration into a design that is of your own creation. We will make mini samples. We will make pattern drafts. And at the end, you will have a draft and a design that you have created that you can call your own, and then after class, go and weave. So I invite you to sign up for the 3-hour session, Inkle Your Way, um, how to design custom Inkle bands on Saturday the 15th from 1:30 to 4:30. Thank you.
Awesome. I love that color hesitant. That's so funny to me. It made me chuckle. So I just want to highlight a couple things. So you talked about that materials kit. So I just want to let everybody know that that's the $15 material fee, correct? And that's everything that comes in that kit.
Correct.
Awesome. So is there anything that students need to bring in addition to that kit?
Enthusiasm and curiosity.
Awesome.
I will have colored pencils, I'll have the paper to color on, I'll have yarns, I'll have the cardboard to wrap on the yarn. I bring everything.
So this is just a walk-in, show-up class.
It's a
You
perfect end of conference class. Yes.
Wonderful. And you mentioned having inspiration pictures from magazines and such, but if people have their own photos that they're really inspired by right now, could they bring those as well?
Absolutely. I listened to one of the other sessions and I heard that we were going to get student email lists about 90 days before, and that was going to be one of the things I suggested. Perfect.
Awesome. Great. So it sounds like you don't actually need to have an Inkle loom present in class. Is that
Nope.
correct?
Correct. We will not be weaving as such, but we will be making a mini sample warp.
Great. And you'll be all set up then to weave your own design at home.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing more about that class. Again, that was Jennifer Williams talking about the Inkle Your Way, How to Design Custom Inkle Bands class, which is a 3-hour seminar taking place on Saturday, August 15th. Up next, we've got Sandy Cahill, who's going to be talking about Sew a Mini Scarf, the perfect yarn stash buster.
Yes. Thank you very much, Erica, for that nice introduction. I am so excited about Convergence for next summer, and it's really going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. So, you know that all weavers and knitters have beautiful yarns in their stash in various quantities. All of those small balls and ends of cones are just sitting there gathering dust. They're usually not enough to actually do anything with, but just enough that you don't want to throw it away. And think about using all those loom waste ends waiting to make a cool project. This half day seminar will give you a chance to use up those bits and pieces of yarn cluttering up your stash while making a cute mini scarf. You will learn the technique of using sticky Fabri-Solvi and those small bits of yarn and your sewing machine to make 2 take home samplers and a finished mini scarf. Sticky Fabrisolve is a water-soluble sticky interfacing that you stick the yarns to, and they stick like this just onto the stickiness of the fabric of the interfacing. And then you put a clear topper on top of it all, which is also water-soluble. And then essentially you're making a sandwich with the sticky Fabrisolve, your yarn in the middle, and the clear topper on top. And after you're done sticking your yarns down to the sticky Fabrisolve, then you're going to use the free motion feature on your sewing machine. So that's dropping the feed dogs, and you're going to stitch through all the layers, making this sandwich into a stitched, randomly stitched sandwich of the sticky Fabrisolve, your yarns captured in the middle, and the clear topper on top. When you're done with your stitching, then you're going to use hot water and soap and wash away the water-soluble interfacing. And what you are left with is this beautiful fabric, which is just made of yarn and sewing thread holding it all together. So nice and soft, beautiful way to make fabric using just yarn and your sewing machine. So in the class, we're going to be making two samplers. The first sampler is going to show the different segmented parts of the technique. So you're going to use your sewing machine on the sampler that I provide you and do the stitching to practice about how to understand sticky solve and how to use it with the yarn in your sewing machine. The next sampler you make is going to be one that's completely sewn together so that you do all the sewing and all of the edging all the way around it. And then when you're finished with the sewing here, you're going to be washing out the sticky solve interfacing. And then what you're left with is the clear, fabric that is made of just the yarn and your stitching holding it all together. And we use red thread so that you can really see the contrast against the white yarn as to where you've been with your stitching and how to understanding how to use that sticky solve product. Also, you're going to be getting this take-home notebook, which is going to show you with pictures all of the complete directions for how to accomplish this process. And inside your notebook, I will pre-make these sampler pieces so you can get right to sewing and understanding the process and the technique. I will also including in your notebook the references page and also links to my favorite supplies so you can get these supplies for yourself if you want to do this project at home after you're finished in class. So when we're done with the two samplers, then what we're going to do is use the yarn that you bring to class and this pre-made and pre-determined sticky solve piece that I'm including in your notebook. And you're going to lay your yarns out onto that sticky solve surface. And then you're going to put the clear topper on top and do the stitching on your sewing machine using the free motion technique, which means you drop your feed dogs so that you can steer the stitching randomly all around and not in any straight lines. You're going to be randomly stitching. And then when you're done with all the stitching, you're going to wash away using hot water and soap. And then you're left with a mini scarf that is just the yarn and the sewing thread holding it all together. The $15 fee that is for this class includes the take-home notebook, which includes the samples inside and ready to go. When you're finished with the samples, you're going to put them back in the notebook so that you can reference them later when you get home. And then I also provide for the $15 fee the sticky solve that's pre-cut and pre-marked into the scarf shape that you will be using. And then I provide the clear topper for you to use also. What you bring to class is a sewing machine that has the capability of doing free motion stitching, which means dropping the feed dogs. And then you're also going to bring red thread for your samplers, and you're going to bring a thread that coordinates with the 100 yards of yarn that you're bringing with you too. So you're bringing various kinds of yarn, all totaled is 100 yards. Then we'll get right to sewing your mini scarf. And by the end of the class, you will have a take-home notebook with samplers inside, and you'll have a finished mini scarf project.
Fantastic. So for this 3-hour seminar, it sounds like we're getting so much out of that. So we're getting some samples that they get to take with them, but they also get to complete that scarf to take home as well.
Yes, that is correct. We're going to be busy, busy bees, and we're going to be sewing fast. So, yeah.
I have a question about kind of the feel of that end product. So you talk about, I think you're saying sticky fiber solve, and then you also have that top. Do both of those materials dissolve, or does the one piece stay behind?
No, they both dissolve. The sticky Faber-Solvi is a very stiff product. It has a paper backing, but the actual sticky part of the part is just like you would feel like interfacing that you sew with. So it's got a papery kind of feeling and it's very stiff. But what it does is it holds the yarn in place on the sticky surface so that you can put the clear topper on top of it. And then that makes your yarns stay in place until you can get down to sewing them and keeping them really trapped in that sandwich. Yes, the sticky solvy underlayment, which is sticky and kind of interfacing feeling, washes away, and the clear topper washes away also. So all you're left with is the yarn and the sewing thread in the end.
And I see a little sample of this behind you with this mini scarf. Are you also going to talk about finishing? It looks like maybe you have a button there that kind of holds it
I
in place.
do. Yes, it is a two-sided button that holds it together because the finished scarf has these loops along both of the two edges. So you're essentially, the shape of the scarf that I'm making is essentially a parallelogram. Kind of hold it up so you can kind of see with the loops on the two diagonal ends. And the way you put this together is to button those ends wherever you want to. So I have it buttoned kind of asymmetrically. And that's also something you're going to get with the materials is you're going to get to choose a button that matches to your scarf so that you have the button to go home with to
Great.
button up the scarf.
Awesome. Okay, we have a question here too about the sewing machine. So I do want to say HGA is working on securing some machines. But in this case, we've got a question. If their machine doesn't have the drop feed, is it possible to do this with back and forth straight stitching instead of free motion?
Yes, it is possible. You will have a level of frustration with it, though, especially when working on the edges. But it is very possible to do it just by sewing in a grid fashion. So don't let that stop you from taking the class. I will have two machines with me in class, and so I would be able to let a student practice the free motion part of it if they want to. But yes, that's a great question. Straight stitching, like for instance on a featherweight that does not have the ability to drop the feed dogs, um, is a definite possibility to make this scarf. Yes.
Awesome. Well, that sounds like such a fun class. I'm excited to see the stashed yarns that everybody brings to
Yeah.
make these
Uh-huh.
pieces.
Yeah.
Um, so again, that was Sandy Cahill talking about the Sew a Mini Scarf, the Perfect Yarn Stash Buster class, which is a 3-hour seminar taking place on Saturday, August 15th. Up next, we've got Melissa Weaver Dunning. I'm going to give this a shot with the L'amour du Maman Acadian weaving class. How did I do?
Oh, you did great. Hold on, I'm gonna not do this quite yet. Okay, there we go. And I need to change my view. Okay, hi. I'm Melissa Weaver Dunning. Yes, that really is my maiden name. It's a question that comes up quite often. I'm really excited about coming to New Orleans. I have never been to Louisiana, and I was particularly excited to be able to offer the L'amour de Maman Acadian handweaving class, just because it deals with both handweaving from early French Canada and also Louisiana. So it's a very local and very specialized class. So let me pull up my screen now and answer all the questions and play. Okay, there we go. So, and this class will be taking place on Friday and Saturday of Convergence from 9 o'clock to 4:30. It's a 2-day class, and people will be bringing prepared looms to the class. You will weave on your own loom. And an awful lot of the classes that I teach are also history lessons. So the Acadian people came from an area of France called Pitou. They were, as far as I know, the first European colonists to come to North America. And they settled in what would later be Nova Scotia, and parts of adjacent lands in the Maritime provinces. And this is just a map of all the timing, but the settlement started in 1604, so it was super early compared to, say, I grew up in Virginia with Virginia history, and we learned a lot about Jamestown, and all those things happened a bit later. So these are people who came directly from Europe, and this is the type of loom that they built when they got there. Traditionally, French looms, very basic peasant weaving in France, is done entirely on 2-harness looms. So they figured out a lot of interesting ways to jazz up their weaving, mostly through weft manipulations. And this is the image for the class. And these are the fabrics that each of you will be weaving on your own loom. And from left to right, we have cordon, which is the crammed threads that you see both in the warp and the weft. We have also on the same piece boutonné, which is lifted loops, which is a very old idea that has been found in lots of different places. The next fabric is their winter skirt fabric, which is also called a drugget. It's a very heavy weft-faced wool fabric, and it was meant also to keep the wind out. The next fabric that you see is a simple cordon without any boutonné, any of the little loops. The next fabric, which is the most colorful, is their summer skirting fabric, which is a type of linsey woolsey. We'll be weaving with a cotton warp, but we'll use wool for the weft. And there are some features that we can see right away. There's a dotted line that you see there, and that is called à la planche patterning. And it's done with a stick, which is the literal translation. And it's a way of picking up a pattern shed at the back of the loom and keeping it on a stick that you can bring forward and use when you want to. There's also some S&Z twisted plied yarns, and we'll be making those kinds of yarns in class to use in your sampler. And there's another little color and weave feature that's not in this picture. And then the last fabric is to the right, resembles somewhat rag rugs. It's a very simple fabric called, oh, where's my brain today? Catalan. So we will learn all about all of these fabrics, which were some of them woven, all of them woven in Canada, but many of them also woven in Louisiana. So this is a Catalan that's called a couverture de mariage, a wedding blanket, and young girls saved white rags from a very young age to have enough to weave their special wedding coverlet. And the piece you see on the left, and the image on the right is a close-up of the same fabric. So it has both thread, yarn used as weft, and rags, and there's a lot of variety, and we'll talk more about that. This is a lovely boutonné coverlet, which appears in the book Keep Me Warm One Night, but also was used for the illustration for a stamp in Canada. and it shows all kinds of stuff going on. Raised loop patterning, which is the boutonné, and also it has a la planche patterning, where you see the checkerboard kind of lines. And we'll learn a whole lot about Acadian history. This is about the time period when all of the Acadian people were rounded up, or as many as they could find, and put on ships and sent out to the 13 colonies. And they spent about 10 years between homelands, and many of them eventually found their way to Louisiana, where they were given kind of, you can have that land up in the bayou that's not so good for farming. But by being both geographically isolated and culturally isolated, they held on to their culture. And 250 years later, although by now I think it's 300, they were weaving the same type of cloth they had been in Canada. And for me, that's one of the most exciting things about this. This is a quilt made with hand-spun, hand-woven, indigo dyed, and natural brown cotton in Louisiana. And this would have been work clothing, just ordinary clothing that when it wore out was cut up and used for quilts. This is the type of Catalan or bed covering that they made in Louisiana. They used entirely cotton, and they mostly used this natural brown cotton called coton jaune. And this is, that's Austin Clark on the left, who will also be at Convergence for part of the time. And we were teaching a class together at the folk school about Acadian weaving. And I got this picture of him with one of his masterpieces that he wove for his apprenticeship with the last living Acadian weaver in the United States, in Louisiana, named Elaine Bourque. And this has both cordon and boutonné patterning. It's a very famous coverlet that was woven by a particular woman, and he made a reproduction of it. And he did all of the cotton spinning for the thicker cotton. And this is really all of my inspiration for this class comes from my original weaving teacher, Norman Kennedy, who is shown here setting up a loom on the Mall of Washington during the Folklife Festival. And the woman who is weaving is, oh dear, my brain is just really kind of saggy today. Wait, it'll come to me. I gotta find the right page. Oh, okay, I got it. That's Gladys Clark, who was born Gladys LeBlanc, and she grew up in a family of weavers. Her mother wove coverlets, and here she is setting up the loom to weave to demonstrate on the Mall. And many decades later, Norman and Gladys met again in Louisiana, and he was asking her questions without realizing they'd met before. Had she ever traveled? Oh, yes, she'd gone to Washington. And they'd had a loom. This nice red-headed young man had set it up for them. And then she clapped her hands to her face and ran off and came back with a news clipping. So here they are again. So most of what I've learned about this cloth has been through Norman Kennedy and through Gladys Clark indirectly. And here she is as a young girl on the left, that's her mother spinning. And this is a cabinet full of cloth that is all Louisiana Cajun weaving. And real quick, this is one of the loveliest pictures of Gladys's own weaving. She grew 3 different colors of cotton in her garden, white, actually I think 4, 2 different brown shades of brown and a kind of greenish color, that brownish green that's at the bottom. She dyed with indigo, and she wove mostly table type pieces, runners and mats. And this is one of her pieces with the coton jaune on the right. And that is all I have to show for you today.
Fantastic. Honestly, yeah, as we've been setting up this conference, we can just tell how important Acadian textiles are in Louisiana. And we're so excited about having that culture and bringing a little taste of that into the conference. So thank you so much for giving us such a wonderful overview. And you talked a lot about bringing in the historical elements to this, so that's going to be in the class as well. But I see that folks do need to have a loom, and you mentioned that they'll come with a prepared loom. So can we talk a little bit about what folks are going to be maybe making, how many samples maybe they're going to walk away with?
So they have the opportunity to weave 5 or 6 samples on their own loom. I'll also be bringing a table loom with a cordon warp on it because that's the only sample that you can't weave on the loom. You can weave all the other fabrics, but having the crammed warp set up is separate. So, and it's a very simple, it can be done with 8-2 or 10-2 cotton, just natural unmercerized cotton, but I prefer to use 12-2. It's just a little finer and it's available as a domestic yarn made in this country. So each person will bring their own loom, but table looms are okay for this class as well as floor looms.
Wonderful. And in addition to having that loom, the prepared loom and such, what else should students be prepared to bring along with them?
Well, they'll need their regular weaving kit. They'll need shuttles and bobbins, and we'll have hopefully a couple of bobbin winders in the room. They'll need to bring 2 or more pickup sticks for doing the a la planche work. The student handout is very specific about what needs to be brought, and we'll be working with relatively fine wool threads and also with more of the 12-2, like a half-pound cone of the 12-2 cotton will do everything you need to do for this class, except for a little bit of wool weft as well.
Wonderful. All right, so we've got a lot of hands-on in this class too. So just to highlight and maybe highlight the compare and contrast to the seminar that you have as well, is the history that's covered here in this hands-on class going to be different or similar to the seminar?
So having the opportunity to offer a seminar just on the history of Acadian textiles, I will talk about the history, the long arc of history of the Acadian people, but also we'll look at lots of samples of antique pieces, as well as modern woven pieces of Acadian weaving. So it's just the seminar gives me the opportunity to go very in depth with history. I'll talk a little bit about history in class, but we'll mostly be weaving.
Wonderful. So for students' reference, there'll be a little bit of history in here, but this is primarily hands-on and actually getting to dabble with those Acadian techniques. Awesome. And I think I'm just going to also take a second then to kind of plug, we've got the tour going on August 17th as well. So if anybody is taking these classes and learning this history and practicing these techniques, definitely check out the Acadian Threads tour, which is taking place Monday, August 17th, to get even a deeper dive into the local culture in Louisiana, heading to Baton Rouge. So thank you so very much for telling us more about that class. Again, that was Melissa Weaver Dunning. This is the 2-day workshop, hands-on workshop for Acadian weaving, taking place Friday and Saturday, August 14th and 15th. And last but not least for today, we have Ellen Hess, who's going to be talking about developing color ideas from visual inspiration images.
Hello, I am so excited to be talking about this in the company of such wonderful instructors. I am going to share my screen and talk about what we will do in my class. Okay, that looks good. And okay, so it was very interesting to hear Jennifer talk about her comfort level with color and how many people find that challenging when they are designing fabrics and projects they want to weave. So one of the ways people can do that effectively is to collect color ideas from the world around them. Um, so where do the ideas come from? And pardon the pun, but how can you harness those colors to work for you? So in this seminar, we will talk about where to research colors, and there are so many places. And then once you have color ideas, how do you work with them? How do we even see color? Um, and also, what makes a group of colors work together in, let's say, a yarn palette? And what might not work as well in a yarn palette? So these visual images are very, very different, but they all have their own unique quality. They're either very vibrant colors and they have a lot of contrast, or they're more muted colors, or they may be more monochromatic. It might be tints, tones, and shades of one hue that you are a big fan of. And we will talk about how to take those colors and use them effectively in a woven project. I talk about knitting a little bit, but mostly it's for a woven project. So here is a slide from one of my students. The image on the left is a painting by Matisse, and this student was inspired to create different fabrics, woven fabrics, from that image. And so you're seeing a variety of textures and shapes. However, adding the color makes such a huge difference, because color brings things to life. When people go shopping for clothing, it has been documented that the first thing they look for is the color. So being able to use color effectively in your hand-woven fabrics makes a huge difference. And I'm guessing that for Jennifer's Inkle loom design class, it's very different because that is very warp-faced, where the color that I'm talking about applies to many different weave structures. So colors are also, they have a lot of meaning in various cultures. So we will explore a lot of facets of color. We will explore cultural connections with color. We will explore, um, let's just say the effect that colors have on you physiologically and also psychologically, how colors affect you in everyday life, with colors being used for merchandising things and selling and logos for things. So colors have so much meaning other than the actual hue. And all that filters into the colors you may want to use in a design project. So we will touch on color theory. I myself have always been an intuitive colorist, which means I am attracted to certain colors and I like using them in combination. And when I finally had to work with color theory, I had to take a class and think about it and talk about it. It was one of those aha moments that it was like, oh my gosh, here are the tools that will allow me to really use these colors effectively. So we will talk about color wheels, we will talk about color perception, we will talk about the Munsell color tree, which shows tints, tones, and shades of every single hue in the whole world that the human eye can see. So we'll talk about color theory, I hope in a kind of very functional, dynamic way, not just as dry theory, so that you will be able to apply that to any project you want. Color, depending on how large the amount of color is showing in your piece, it will affect the overall effect. So this is a painting on the left by Chuck Close, a self-portrait, and on the right you see a detail of it. And within the detail, there are so many colors and within all the shapes. But when they're viewed from a distance, they look like his skin tones. And so our eyes blend colors in our brain, and we will talk about how that physiology of seeing color makes a difference in your weavings. We'll talk about different ways to collect your color ideas, how to store them, and how to shuffle them around, if you will, to create color palettes that you will be thrilled to use. We will talk a little bit about creating palettes. So that means when you have a visual image that you are just really that brings you joy, that you're just really drawn to, how do you excerpt the colors? How do you say, oh, I want to use this color, that color, and this other color when there are so many available in the image? So what you're seeing on the screen now has a lot of different colors of green and a little bit of brown, a little bit of black. And so the palette that you see in the bottom left-hand corner has pulled out, almost like with a little eyedropper, has pulled out some of each color. But how you use them in your piece will drastically change how the piece looks. So we'll be talking about creating palettes. We will talk about how to take your color palette and apply it to different designs. These are simple plaids and stripes, but it also applies to more complex weave structures. So here is an example of a visual reference, an image. This is a photo I took during the pandemic. I went for long walks, and one day it had rained, and there were beautiful oil slick patterns on the ground, and I was so inspired. I took a lot of photos of that. And then those colors inspired me to weave it's a woven shibori piece that I dyed the warp and then wove it as woven shibori, did the pull threads, and then over dyed it in a sort of a muted gray. But the inspiration was the oil slicks. So you will see how I will demonstrate with some images and weavings how that happens. This is the one, I think that was in the slide that introduced my seminar. This is this is actually a plain weave fabric, believe it or not, that was inspired by the colors in this painting. And the painting has it's very busy. There's a lot of brush strokes in it. And so the yarns selected in the color palette have a lot of texture to them. So all of these things figure into planning your color. So, for your individual projects, you are the one who will select the colors, play with them, and come up with a beautiful project. Okay, I am going to stop sharing unless you'd like this screen to stay on, Erica.
You can stop sharing and then we can see you as you answer
Sure.
some questions.
Okay.
This sounds so cool. I would maybe consider myself what you called an intuitive colorist as well. So I think that's really exciting for any of us out there that really maybe do like color but don't have the training in how to fine tune that and really get to like the crux of it. So it's very cool to hear that you're going to be talking about the mechanics behind all of that. And I'm curious, there's no materials fee or anything for this class. Is there anything folks should be prepared to bring along with them for this seminar?
So if people would like to bring tear sheets from magazines or photographs or anything that has color that inspires them, and they could bring maybe 5 or 6 if they choose to, and we will talk about how to best use those images and see what is the sort of overarching theme. Like, what are they drawn to? Are they drawn to images that have a lot of contrast? Are they drawn to bright colors? Are they drawn to beautiful subtle colors? And so we can talk about that too after the slides. And if they want to bring a notebook to take notes, that's fine too. Color is such an intangible thing that and in different lights, I don't know what lights we're going to have during the seminar, but things will look different in that room than they do out in the sunlight and at home under different lighting. So there's lots of variables. But if people want to bring things, or if they have a woven piece that they've purchased from somebody, if they want to bring that in, we can talk about what makes it work. If they have something they've woven that they hate the colors, we can talk about what could be edited to improve the colors.
Ooh, I love that idea. I think we've all had that happen. We think it's gonna be great, and then it gets off the loom and it's just not quite hitting the mark anymore. So this sounds like it's kind of gonna be maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, primarily lecture based, but then with a little bit of hands-on if people bring in samples for you to look at.
Yes, it is mostly lecture based because there are a lot of aspects of color that I need to talk about so that everyone will have the tools to become editors of their color palettes and their projects.
And I am sure they are going to all leave so inspired because just this little 5-minute snippet has already been so inspiring to me. So I can't wait to see what folks leave with and what they decide to make with their newfound color theory knowledge.
Thank you. Sometimes students will email me after a workshop and show me what they made, and I find that so exciting. It's great.
Well, there you go. Students, you gotta let her know what you make afterwards.
Yes, please.
Thank you so much. Again, that was Ellen Hess talking about the Developing Color Ideas from Visual Inspiration Images, which is a 90-minute seminar taking place on Wednesday, August 12th. And you can find more information on our website, weavespindye.org. Head under the Convergence tab there to Sessions and Leaders to find more about the classes and register, or explore the other pages too to learn more about the tours and marketplace and all of those goodies. We will be offering session spotlights every weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time until mid-November, and the recordings will be available on HGA's YouTube channel. So be sure to look back if there are any other classes that you're interested in, or join us in the coming weeks as we tackle more classes. I look forward to seeing you there.